The Minister is putting his foot on the gas, announcing the government will forcibly intervene in the energy market if private enterprise doesn't hurry up. The Coalition has declared it's prepared to fund a new gas power station in the Hunter Valley.
A prime mover, Scott Morrison, announces his government is prepared to forcibly intervene in the national energy market.
So this is the plan. If the energy companies choose to step up and make these investments to create that capacity, great. We will step back. If not, my government will step up and we will fill the gap.
With the Hunter Valley's Liddell coal-fired power station slated to close, the PM makes clear what Australia's east coast desperately needs.
We need the market to deliver 1,000 megawatts of new dispatchable capacity by the summer of 2023-24. Because if that doesn't happen, the prices are going to go up.
By around a third. It's a rare position backed by Labor.
What he's announcing is our plan.
The Prime Minister is keen to transition away from coal, and in doing so is equally keen to put gas at the centre of the budget, hoping cheaper power prices will create more jobs and pay down the national debt.
Bring on firm generation capacity. Better integrate renewables. Overhaul the rules to create a modern and efficient market and put more power in the hands of customers.
To do that, the government wants to unlock the new gas reserves, such as this one in the Northern Territory's Beetaloo Basin.
We've got to get the gas.
The PM making clear that in order to back up intermittent renewables that now cover the landscape,
we need firming capacity. Firming keeps the lights on when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing.
The Coalition also wants to create new pipelines, bringing that gas to key markets and a central hub where retailers can purchase it at a more reasonable price.
Commonwealth stands ready to step in to support pipeline development if necessary, as we are doing now with other nationally significant infrastructure like electricity interconnectors, water infrastructure and, of course, major highways.
While Labor is roundly supportive...
Now, I don't believe you'll get any resistance from our party of the concept of underwriting long-term gas supply contracts. It doesn't cost the taxpayer any money.
Opposition may yet come from outliers within the Coalition who want a coal-fired power station. Nationals questioning the sense of sending gas from central Queensland down to the Hunter region, where coal is being dug up and exported to the world.
It's got the world's best thermal coal, so why would you build a gas-fired power station there? Just build a new advanced coal-fired power station, which people have wanted to do.
Tired of the constant battles with energy companies, the Prime Minister is promising the biggest shake-up of the national energy market since it was created some 22 years ago, hoping it might also finally stop the practice of Australian gas being sold to foreign countries at a cheaper rate than you can buy here.
A 21st century electricity market must have 21st century rules.
Those rules will be drafted and decided by the National Cabinet's new Energy Reform Committee next year. Jonathan Lee, Sky News, Canberra.
Let's get some analysis on this. Richie Merzian joins me, the Climate and Energy Director at the Australia Institute. Richie, do you welcome the fact that the government is going to at least encourage the transition away from coal? There won't be any extension of the Liddell power station.
It's definitely something worth congratulating. It's good to see Liddell retire when it's supposed to. Things should retire when they hit that retirement age, and that's what we're seeing now with AGL's oldest coal-fired power station. But it's no good replacing one fossil fuel with another, and that's the real issue here. If the replacement is, fossil gas, then we're going to see emissions continue to climb in this particular sector, and we know that there's cheaper, faster, and more reliable alternatives, and that's what we'd like to see explored.
When you say more reliable, that's the key question. The government says anything like renewable or battery, it's simply not as reliable as a gas peaking plant, which can be switched on and turned on in a few minutes.
Yeah, renewables do what they're supposed to do, which is work when the ingredients are there, and according to the CSIRO, with 6 hours of backup storage, you can still build a new renewable power station and it'll come in much cheaper than coal and cheaper than gas. And when it comes to how useful these gas power stations are on the grid, according to our analysis at the Australia Insitute, we only use them 10% of the time that they're available. And we're using them less and less because they're expensive and also because our reliability needs don't require, at least on the East Coast, as much gas as we thought we needed.
But if there is a weather event, a major load on the system, renewables and batteries don't have the capacity to hold up, do they, in the face of that?
But it really depends on what the mix looks like, and that's why it's so important to listen to the energy experts that regulate the market. And so according to the Australian Energy Market Operator, we don't need anything more to increase reliability in New South Wales over the next decade, nor do we need any more generation as what's currently in the pipeline in terms of power supply. So listening to the energy experts that regulate the market, this doesn't seem like a necessity. So it's just a question.
But it would help
why.
drive prices down, wouldn't it?
Well,
having greater supply?
Well, what we've seen is gas makes energy prices more expensive. Like Australia has tripled its gas supply in the last decade on the East Coast, and yet Australians are paying more for gas. Imagine getting 3 times more of a product and then still paying more.
Because the exports obviously were too great.
Exactly.
And Labor's been saying that they need to the government needs to ensure more domestic supply. That makes sense, which the government's doing through that hub today.
Well, but unfortunately, the cheap gas is gone. We've exported it. And so what we're left with is expensive gas that will lead to expensive energy prices. And by contrast, renewables are bringing prices down. So what we're seeing in the electricity market is that gas is getting pushed out. We're using it less and less because it's so expensive. And we don't need it as often as we thought we did for reliability.
In terms of you say it's a fossil fuel, but doesn't the International Energy Agency say that this is a much cleaner fuel? In fact, coal and renewables are 50% cleaner than what coal would be. Well, sorry, I should say gas and renewables, 50% cleaner than coal. Do you agree with that?
Gas tends to be cleaner than coal, but it's often underreported what its full carbon footprint looks like, because we know that gas is made up mainly of methane. Methane has a much bigger climate impact than just CO2, and a lot of that gas is leaked. So that leakage is what's actually causing a much bigger carbon footprint for gas. Sometimes in some locations, it's as bad as coal. And that's the real worry. You're locking in another fossil fuel that could be as bad as coal. You're doing it for the next 30, 40, 50, makes reaching these net zero targets very hard.
The chief scientist, Alan Finkel, he supports gas as a transition fuel. What do you say to that?
Well, he also has to contend with the fact that a number of climate scientists came out and disputed Alan Finkel's claims on this one. When it comes to transitioning to net zero emissions, whether it's the IEA or our own regulators here in Australia, there doesn't seem like there's much room for gas.
Richie Merzian, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Climate Director at the Australia Institute. After the break,